Today, I want to remind you that if you want to rise higher, you must first bow down and let go of your ego. Ego blocks your growth. Ego is a silent thief of wisdom. It steals your ability to listen, to learn, and to accept that someone else might know better. The moment ego takes charge, your growth comes to a stop. You no longer look for lessons in failures. Instead, you see them as personal attacks. You stop hearing advice as guidance. Instead, you hear it as criticism. Growth requires a heart that is open and a mind that is willing to be stretched beyond its comfort zone. Ego hates both. It convinces you that you already know enough, that you are too good to learn from those around you. But the greatest lessons in life don't always come from the people who look powerful. Sometimes they come from the simplest souls who live with humility. Think about a tree. When it is young, it bends with the wind and learns to survive. But when it grows stiff and refuses to bend, even a small storm can uproot it. Ego makes us stiff. Ego makes us too rigid to adapt, too stubborn to accept change, and too blind to see new possibilities. The truly wise are not the ones who claim to know everything. They are the ones who admit that there is always more to learn. Ego tells you that you are full, but humility tells you that you are still empty enough to receive more. The choice is always yours. Do you want to keep growing, or do you want to stop at the prison that ego creates? Ego is not strength. It is weakness disguised as pride. It stops you from asking for help when you need it. It stops you from acknowledging mistakes, and it stops you from moving forward. The bravest people are not those who hold their ego high, but those who put it down and say, "Teach me, guide me, show me another way." Every time you allow ego to control you, you reject the opportunities life is trying to send your way. But every time you let go of ego, you open a door for new wisdom to enter. Growth doesn't come to the proud. It comes to the humble, who know that every day is a classroom, and every soul around us is a teacher. The truth is, when you kill your ego, you give birth to your potential. The walls you thought were protecting you start breaking down, and you suddenly see how wide the world really is. You start to notice lessons in failures, wisdom in mistakes, and guidance in people you once ignored. That is how growth begins, by letting your ego die so your spirit can rise. Ego destroys relationships. Relationships are the most beautiful part of life, but they are also the most fragile. They don't always break because of betrayal or distance. Sometimes they break because of ego. When ego enters a relationship, love begins to fade, respect begins to weaken, and connection begins to die. Ego makes you fight to win arguments rather than to save hearts. It makes you value being right more than being kind. It stops you from saying, "I'm sorry," even when you know you are wrong, because your pride feels heavier than the bond you share. And slowly, people you love start to walk away. Not because they stopped loving you, but because they could not fight your ego anymore. Ego whispers in your ear that apologizing makes you weak, but the truth is, apologizing makes you human. It shows that you value people more than your pride. Ego, on the other hand, makes you choose silence over communication, distance over closeness, and coldness over warmth. So many families are broken, so many friendships are lost, not because love ended, but because ego stood in the way. A single word of humility could heal years of hurt, but ego never lets those words escape your lips. It tells you to stay silent, to stay distant, to let the bond rot, because your pride matters more than their presence. But when you choose humility, you choose connection. When you let go of ego, you give relationships a chance to breathe again. You choose peace over war, love over pride, and understanding over dominance. And in that choice, you save not just a relationship, but also a part of yourself. Ego destroys relationships, but humility builds them. Ego isolates you, but humility brings people closer. At the end of the day, what will matter most is not who won the arguments, but who chose to protect the bond despite the differences. And that can only happen when you kill your ego. Because in the end, they remember the moments you swallowed your pride to hold their hand, the times you bent your head to say sorry, and the days you put your heart above your ego. That is what keeps love alive. Ego creates loneliness. Loneliness is not always about being alone. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely isolated if your ego keeps building walls around you. Ego convinces you that you don't need anyone, that asking for support is weakness, and that standing alone makes you stronger. But in reality, it only makes you empty. We were never created to walk this journey alone. Human beings are wired for connection, for companionship, for love and care. Ego, however, strips all of that away. It makes you push people out of your life. It makes you too proud to ask for help. And it makes you believe that isolation is strength. Ego will give you attention, but it will not give you respect. It will make people admire you from a distance, but it will not allow them to love you up close. Because love requires vulnerability, and ego hates vulnerability. It wants to look strong, even if inside you are breaking. Over time, the pride that once made you feel powerful turns into chains that trap you in silence. You may have success, wealth, or recognition, but if your ego has cost you genuine relationships, you will feel a void that nothing else can fill. Because life is not about achievements, it is about connection. Ego creates loneliness by feeding the illusion of independence, but strength is not about rejecting people. Strength is about embracing them. True strength is when you can say, I need you, I value you, I care for you without shame or hesitation. Ego hides those words. Humility frees them. The greatest victories are not won alone. They are shared with those who walk beside you. Ego robs you of that joy. Humility multiplies it. So, if you feel lonely despite having everything, maybe it is not people you are missing, it is your humility. And when you finally put your ego aside, you realize that connection is the greatest wealth. A single hand to hold, a single heart to lean on, a single voice to say, I am with you is worth more than all the pride in the world. Loneliness ends the moment ego dies. Ego keeps you stuck in the past. Ego is not just about the present moment, it clings tightly to the past. It refuses to forgive, it refuses to let go, it refuses to move forward. Ego convinces you that holding grudges makes you stronger, but in reality, it makes you weaker. It keeps you chained to old wounds that were meant to heal long ago. When you hold on to ego, you carry pain everywhere you go. You replay old arguments, you revisit old betrayals, and you reopen scars that should have closed. And with each replay, your future suffers, because you are too busy feeding your ego with the past. Ego does not allow peace to enter. It keeps whispering that forgiving is losing, that moving on is surrender, and that letting go is defeat. But the truth is the opposite. Only when you forgive, you win. Only when you release the past, you can embrace the present. Imagine carrying a heavy bag every single day. At first, you think you are strong enough to handle it. But over time, it starts to weigh you down, slow your steps, and exhaust your energy. Ego is that bag. You think it makes you look strong, but in reality, it makes you weak. Letting go of ego does not mean forgetting what happened. It means choosing peace over pain. It means choosing freedom over chains. It means saying my future matters more than my pride. And that choice can transform your entire journey. When you kill your ego, you stop reliving your wounds and start rewriting your story. You stop being the prisoner of yesterday and become the creator of tomorrow. And that is how life moves forward, not by holding grudges, but by releasing them. And when you finally drop the burden of ego, you feel light for the first time. You begin to breathe freely, love freely, and live freely. The past no longer controls you because ego no longer chains you. That is the real freedom, living without the weight of yesterday. Humility attracts success. The world often teaches us that success is about showing power, wealth, and dominance. But the truth is, the most successful people are not those who shout about their achievements, but those who remain grounded despite them. Humility is the secret ingredient that attracts real success. Ego pushes people away, but humility draws them closer. Ego makes you look arrogant, but humility makes you approachable. Ego closes doors, but humility opens them. People love working with those who are humble, because humility creates trust, respect, and loyalty. The most beautiful thing about humility is that it doesn't mean you think less of yourself. It means you think of yourself less. It allows you to shine without dimming others, to rise without stepping on anyone, and to succeed without becoming ungrateful. Humility keeps you learning. Humility keeps you growing. And humility keeps you connected to the roots that ground you. Ego may give you temporary attention, but humility gives you lasting respect. People forget titles, but they never forget kindness. Success that is built on ego is fragile, because the moment your pride cracks, everything falls. But success that is built on humility is strong, because it is rooted in authenticity and gratitude. Ego builds empires that collapse. Humility builds legacies that last forever. When you choose humility over ego, you don't just win in the eyes of others, you win in the eyes of life itself. You create space for wisdom, for kindness, and for opportunities that ego could never let you see. And in that choice, you rise higher than you ever imagined. And the truth is, humility does not take away from your greatness, it multiplies it. The more grounded you are, the higher life will lift you. The more you bow in gratitude, the more doors will open for you. Kill your ego and watch how life rewards you with victories bigger than your dreams. In the end, life will always test us, not with the challenges outside, but with the battles inside. Ego will try to convince you that you are above others, that you don't need help, that you don't need to bend. But life rewards those who are willing to bow their heads, to admit they don't know everything, and to embrace humility with open arms. True victory is not about standing taller than everyone else, it is about kneeling lower and lifting others with you. When you kill your ego, you unlock your growth, you protect your relationships, you escape loneliness, you release the past, and you attract success that lasts. Ego is the invisible prison that many never escape, but humility is the key that sets you free. The people who truly rise are not the ones who live in pride, but the ones who live in gratitude, in kindness, and in constant learning. That is where real strength comes from. So, if you truly want to win in life, don't build walls of pride, build bridges of humility. Don't carry the weight of ego, carry the light of compassion. Don't chase empty victories, chase meaningful connections. Because in the end, the world will not remember how high your ego stood, but how deeply your humility touched lives. Kill your ego and you will find that life gives you victories bigger than your dreams.